Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mindful Mondays on the Daily Huddle. This is your weekly Monday morning opportunity to start your week off in whatever way you're going to do your week this week in the best way possible with the right mindset. I am so glad that you're here, whether you are tuning in, watching, listening to us over coffee during your commute. Of course, maybe you won't want to be watching this during your commute, or just taking a few mindful moments for yourself today. My name is Keith.lisenbee. I am the CEO and owner of Atlas Behavioral Health Consulting, and I am your host. And I will be hosting here each Monday for Mindful Mondays, and I'm happy to be here. I have started over the last couple of weeks a series on the concept of intentional empathy. We have talked about the 55-38-7 rule. We have talked about the idea that our brains are constructing emotions and experiences for us. And now, today, we're going to get into real nuts and bolts tools on how to show intentional empathy going forward with the two biggest skills that we can start off with. Let me ask you all a question as we begin. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where emotions are running high and you didn't know what to say to make it better? Or worse yet, you said something and it accidentally made things worse. Or maybe you wanted to help someone open up, but instead they shut down. Today, we're going to change that. I'm going to be sharing with you two of the simplest, most powerful tools you can start using in any conversation today to create instant connection, calm tension, and help people feel truly understood. The two concepts are labeling and mirroring, tools straight out of the world of high stakes, crisis, and business negotiations. But honestly, they are absolute pure gold for everyday life at home, on vacation, on trips, on the bus, at work, wherever you have an interaction with someone. And we will see how they fit today into a bigger framework we use here every day, concept that we call intentional empathy. So if you're ready to turn hard conversations into healing ones, build more trust in your relationships, and bring a little bit more peace and power into how you communicate, you're in the right place this morning. So let's jump right in. But as we jump right in, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on another platform or listening, please like it, share, subscribe to the Daily Huddle, share with your friends, your colleagues, and so forth, these powerful ideas and powerful tools moving forward. Just want to remind you of that because we want to grow this thing. So as we jump in, just think about liking, subscribing, and sharing. So let's start off with labeling. Labeling, by definition, simply put, is gently noticing and naming the emotion you sense in someone. You can also gently notice what the theme is that is being observed. You might be seeing someone's facial expression. You might be hearing the tone of their voice. You could be hearing someone expressing frustration, but not quite naming it. And you can label that by labeling the emotion or theme that you're observing in the person that you're interacting with. Phrases like, it sounds like, it seems like, it looks like, it appears like, or it feels like are ways to start the labeling. So with each of those starting phrases, it would be, you would say, it looks like you seem frustrated. It looks like you're tired. Looks like you've had a tough day. Now, why does this work? Why does naming someone else's emotions work in this conversation or in any conversation? Because naming emotions helps people make a sense conceptually of what they're feeling. Going back to what we talked about last week with Dr. Lisa Feldman's Barrett theory on construction of emotions, the idea here is that when we name the emotion for somebody else, they have now a concept of that emotion that helps them make sense of the meaning of what is happening to them. Also, we know that when we label the emotion of someone, preferably a negative one, like you're aggravated or you're sad or you're feeling down or you're anxious, and I wouldn't use those terms, but it sounds like you're anxious, sounds like you're irritated, feels like you're annoyed. When we label the negative emotions of somebody else, it begins to de-escalate them. It begins to diffuse those negative emotions. And the more we label the negative emotions of somebody else, the more calmer they become. There's neuroscience that shows this very succinctly. Um, Meanwhile, if we say it feels like you're excited, it looks like you're very happy, then that actually in tune escalates those positive emotions that the other person is having. So we can diffuse and we can accelerate depending on what we're observing. Labeling is about slowing things down and saying out loud what is emotionally true. Like I said, for example, it sounds like you're frustrated or it feels like you're overwhelmed. But then here's a little trick here. You drop that label, looks like you're tired. It appears like you're overjoyed. Pause. Use silence because that gives them space. After labeling is where that real connection happens. You give them space to process and to think through. Don't rush in to fill in that silence. So that was labeling. Now let's jump to mirroring. Now, mirroring can be misconstrued. Now, some people out there in the audience or listening to us later may feel like mirroring is about mirroring the behavior of somebody else, that we're just sort of mirroring their body language or their voice and so forth. Not talking about that in terms of mirroring in this case. Here, we're talking about voice, mirroring what someone else says. So to define it, mirroring is echoing back a few key words someone just said using a curious, inquisitive, gentle tone. Preferably the last 1 to 3 words and a gentle, slightly upward inflection. Now, mirroring is important because it encourages elaboration and it creates subconscious rapport and emotional safety. Mirroring feels almost too easy, but it's incredibly powerful. For example, if someone says, "This project's overwhelming," and you simply say, "Overwhelming?" No fixing, no leading, just showing them that you are tuned in. If I said, "Hey, I'm going to run down to the store," and maybe you wanted to know a little bit more, the mirror would be, "To the store?" That encourages, without asking a question, elaboration, further information, further connection. People do not want to be interrogated. So if you have a question about, and you're curious about something that someone has said, just simply label the last 1 to 3 words that is being said. Again, no fixing, no leading, just showing them that you are tuned in. As I talked about before, why do these tools work? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the idea is that emotions are constructed. So our brains are predicting and creating emotions based on body sensations and context. So by labeling and mirroring, if we're creating an environment where people feel they're hearing a nice voice tone, we're naming emotions for them, then it begins to, their brains predict a calmer situation, a more de-escalated situation, a more connected situation. Labeling and mirroring helps them regulate and clarify emotions, which is really important. What it also does is labeling and mirroring also releases a neurotransmitter that is incredibly important in connection called oxytocin. So when we are labeling and mirroring, we're beginning a process of helping the other person feel more connected to us by the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin is the connection neurotransmitter, but also it has been found that when people have more oxytocin in a conversation, they're also more likely to be more connected and tell the truth and be more honest. Also, one of the reasons why these tools work is the 55-38-7 rule. Remember from a few weeks ago that body language and tone, 55 and 38 respectively, is 93% of the impact and power of your communication is by your body language and your voice tone. So the key principle in intentional empathy is always align your tone, your posture, and your words to make empathy more real. When you label or mirror, you're helping someone's brain settle down. You're saying through your words and tone, you're safe, you're heard, you matter. This is how connection truly begins. So let's go through some real life examples. Let's start with parenting. So probably most of you have been through this scenario before. You and your child are at a grocery store. Your child asks for candy at the checkout line or a game. You say no, and they immediately start crying loudly. They're visibly upset. The child is yelling, maybe crying to you. You never let me get anything. It's not fair. A label in that situation would be, sounds like you're really disappointed about the candy. A mirror is, don't get anything. Instead of saying to them, calm down, stop whining, you are actually doing that child a favor. You're naming their feelings and giving them that concept for their brain to predict from in the future. And you're mirroring their words to help them feel more understood. The simple move gives their brain a chance to settle, and it shows that you are tuned in. Let's talk about the workplace. That's one of the big reasons why we're here on this show. Maybe during a team meeting, a colleague vents some frustration about the unrealistic demands and deadlines imposed by leadership. What they may say is like, there's no way we can finish this project on time. It's completely impossible with what they're asking for. Simple label in this scenario might be, it seems like the deadline feels impossible. Mirroring feels impossible. You're not agreeing or disagreeing. And that's one thing really to remember about intentional empathy overall. When we are empathic, that does not mean we are agreeing or disagreeing with their viewpoint. It means that we are understanding their viewpoint and showing our ability to articulate it to them. You're making space for them to explain more with empathy. And in doing so, you're helping lower the emotional intensity of the conversation to build connection and eventually collaboration, which is what we all are going for. Last example, before we close this up, relationships. Alfred Adler said that all problems are interpersonal in nature. Let's say your partner comes home from work, drops their bag on the floor with a thud, and slumps onto the couch without saying much. Clearly, look at their body language and their face, clearly upset. And then they say, it's just a rough day. Nothing went right. Label could be here. Looks like you had a rough day today. A mirror would be maybe rough day. Instead of pushing them to talk or offering solutions right away, you lightly name what you're seeing, what you're observing, and you mirror their own words, giving them a door if they wish to walk through it. In each of these moments, whether it's a kid in a meltdown, a coworker venting, or a loved one needing space, labeling and mirroring help you to stay with them emotionally without fixing or rushing. This is what intentional empathy is all about. In conclusion, and we're going to take some questions at the end here. Labeling is gently naming feelings and observations. Mirroring is echoing the last 1 to 3 key words in a sentence with care. And together, this equals building emotional safety and a deeper connection. So before we get to questions from the audience, I'm going to give you a challenge this week. Right? This is your Mindful Monday challenge for this week. And this is a big one, okay? Because in order to do labeling and mirroring really, really well, it requires practice, because for some, this may be quite counterintuitive. So your brain needs to learn to predict these things. The only way to do that is to practice, practice, and practice. So here it is. Pick one real conversation per day this week. In that conversation, at least use one label and use one mirror. Then pause. Then listen and observe what unfolds in that conversation. You might be totally amazed at how powerful small and intentional moments of empathy can be. So that's my talk on labeling and mirroring. And I would love to hear if there are any questions or comments in the audience that I can respond to.
Hey Keith, this is Sorrel.
Good morning.
In mirroring, when you said overwhelming and you went up that way, could it be construed by the brain of another that you're actually questioning whether they're overwhelmed or not?
And that's an excellent question. Depends on tone. If And that's why you want to be really careful with that inflection, when you can. If you overemphasize that questioning, curious tone, the questioning at the end, then it could be, perceived that way. Either way, it is opening the door for some type of elaboration.
So, in that case, if the tone is misconstrued as questioning or doubting or
Mhm.
even invalidating, it opens the door for a conversation where I can say, oh no, I just want to hear more.
Exactly. Yes, you can clarify, or you can simply, if the person appeared to construe that as a challenge, then you can say, "Seems like you felt what I asked uh, was a challenge and felt like invalidating to you." Again, opening up further elaboration along the way, and again, building a connection and clarifying possible things that are being misconstrued in the moment.
And these two techniques work both in business and in personal life.
I totally agree. Yes, they do. Um, I have tried them in movie theaters. I have tried them in restaurants. I have tried them in coffee shops. I have tried them at home. I have tried them with my son. I have tried them with many professional meetings and situations. And I will say there's very, very, very few times that it doesn't work. Very few.
Ah, that's awesome. Can you share a specific instance when you did use them and what transpired? How did it go? How do people actually react in real life?
The immediate memory that recalls for me is I actually was supervising somebody, and in the middle of a team meeting, this person became rather argumentative, rather angry, irritated. It seemed like it was directed personally at me in the meeting, and so after the meeting was adjourned, I asked this individual to come to my office and to have a one-on-one. And I just noticed immediately that, his body language, his facial expression continued to show me that he was irritated and upset. And I just simply said, man, it looks like you're really upset and irritated right now. And I said it really, really slowly so I can really make an impact. And the person was like, kind of nod his head, like, yes. And then he shared with me this whole story about something that had been going on in his family. Had nothing to do with that meeting where he was that irritated and angry. We opened up about what was going on at home with his family. It turned out one of his family members had a serious medical illness going on. It was really seriously weighing on him. And then he took that anxiety and worry and kind of channeled it into being irritated because he just was overwhelmed. And he shared that and he was able then just kind of release that and open up to that. And then we were able to have a very good conversation about what was going on, about him, about what we could do, how we could collaborate, how I can help him with his family stuff. And after that, we had a much stronger working relationship after that point moving forward.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, this is Maria Sangria.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this conversation. And I can see how this would bring a lot of workability. And I'm very present right now to a situation where in a friendship situation, said to a friend, it seems like you're really angry.
Hmm.
And the person responded with, like, I take offense to that and I choose not to give people that much power over me, and I'm not angry and I'm not offended. And I'm just looking at this with you, and I'm wondering why it didn't work. And I'm looking at tones of voices, and it was in a text.
I'm sorry, it was in a text message.
Yep.
Ah, and sounds like your question is you're wondering why this did not work in this
Correct.
particular situation.
Yeah.
Um, and I find that text messaging is you only have one of the three of the 55-38-7 rule. You have your words, and that's it. So voice inflection, voice, body language, all of those things being aligned in order to, show more empathy and to label and mirror more accurately, you only have the words on the screen,
Hmm.
which took away a lot of the power of, that tone of voice of caring and warmth, and
Okay.
also the body language with the person if you were face to face or even in a Zoom virtual meeting like this one. They don't see your face and can read your body language in a more positive way. So I suspect what happened is they just saw the words on the screen and their brain basically predicted, oh well, oh, this person's, hitting the mark. My guess is that you probably hit the mark on what they were feeling. And then there was something about that that hit a little bit too close to home because all they saw were words on the screen.
Okay.
And they just reacted in a negative way.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then, is there anything you recommend for uh, having a loving gentleness in a tone of voice?
Mhm.
What
Uh,
what do you recommend? The reason I'm asking is because there are times when I get passionate and my voice gets intense, and then the response I get is "You're making me wrong," or
mhm, mhm,
what is the other one? There's something else they say. They say it's your tone of voice, and I come
mhm.
back with, "Oh well, I'm just passionate," and I don't want to keep living like that anymore.
Hmm. Not living like that anymore. Yeah. So going back to the 55-38-7, 38% is tone of voice. We can't do not strongly suggest that we like ultimately like change our voices drastically. But what I might suggest is because we that's our natural voice. What I might suggest is to try to train yourself to slow down.
Okay.
That would
Okay.
be the first way to start because, when our brains, when we hear someone talking in a really rapid way to us, our brains start predicting that things are frantic and things are,
Yeah.
a little bit, more intense than maybe we originally thought. And when our brains start predicting that things are more frantic, then our brain will just send outlays of resources to deal with someone who may be frantic, even though they may not be. They are, in your words, just passionate. And so I would start with slowing down, what you're saying. I would also suggest pausing for about 3 seconds or 3 to 5 seconds before starting, to just kind of collect yourself, breathe, give yourself a real good deep breath, and then go into it. You'll find usually your voice will change and drop one level down in octave, and you'll sound more calmer
Well,
to
that's
the other
very
person.
helpful. Okay, that's very helpful. I'm going to do that, and I'll let you know what happens.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good luck with that. I hope that works.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you for talking today. Um, I'm gonna ask something similar to Maria's comment. Um,
Mhm.
and now I I don't think it matters the speed, but I know I would be offended if someone were to ask me or you're upset or no, just tell me you're upset. And I'd be like kind of like, isn't that obvious?
Great. That's a great comment. Thank you for that. And one thing, one little word of caution is the idea that if someone already is stating that they're upset, then it would not be a good idea to label that they are upset. Number one. Number two, note the actual labeling statement. It feels like, it seems like, it sounds like. So those are key words because we're not trying to tell someone how they're feeling. We're not trying to, manipulate someone into feeling a certain way, which would sound, to someone, as to your point, offensive. But we're just saying this is what we're observing. Now, the person on the other side can certainly say, and this is fine too, could say, no, I don't feel that way. I feel this way. Well, again, that shows that we're trying to make a connection, and it still opens the door for further elaboration and discussion because now they've named another emotion. So we're seeing, what we're just labeling what we observe. We're not trying to suggest that, oh, you're angry, which is why I would never say you're angry, you're anxious, you're irritated, because then that can be offensive to people. So I'm just observing and saying seems like, appears like, looks like.
Gotcha. Thanks. So
You're
helpful.
welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Any last questions or comments? Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, for being here this morning and listening to this talk and participating and asking questions. And I look forward to seeing you all next Monday. As always, we're gonna close this up, by going back to the 8 rules of the Daily Huddle, that our checklist of living with more connection, fuller lives, and with care and courage and compassion. So those 8 rules are: one, love always; two, laugh out loud, laugh often; three, stress less; four, eat more plant-based foods; five, give; Give of your time, give of your emotion, give of your energy. 6, sleep. Sleep at least 7 hours. 7, move, move, move. And 8, finally, number 8, last but not least, check your assumptions. Thank you again so much for spending time with me on Mindful Mondays on the Daily Huddle. Until next time, keep listening with your whole heart.